early on in your like editing career, you also edited the remake of Psycho, which is kind of like a shot for shot almost remake of the original film. What was that like to kind of reenact certain scenes and recreate certain scenes, and then also just to put your own spin on it, or like what was that like, the experience?
Well, it was crazy because it was something that like actually even like during my own Private Idaho, like Gus would talk about like, well, if you're gonna remake a movie, just like remake it. Like literally. And, and I was like, well, there's a, conceptual art piece. And he was like, yeah, that's what it would be. And so after he did Good Will Hunting, which was a film that I actually didn't work on with him, he kind of had carte blanche to do whatever he wanted to do. So that was the thing he said he wanted to do. And so I had just edited High Art, and I showed it to him, and I said, I don't know if you're looking for an editor for Psycho, but I would love to just be thrown into the mix. And he hired me. And so we approached it just like the way he shot it. It was going to be a shot for shot remake. And so I had the original Psycho in my Avid, and I would just like dial up, he shot all the shots, but then you started to notice like, actors are doing things differently. Like, how are we going to do this? It's like, you can say you're going to shoot it shot for shot, but it's like, unless, they're also imitating, the actors like Anthony Perkins and, so that's where it got a little tricky. And that's where things went off, the rails. It was like, well, okay, the original idea. And it was still like, his original setups were what Hitchcock shot. And then we'd get into scenes and they played a little bit differently, but we tried to kind of keep it all in.
So how did you find ways to one, keep it similar, but like you said, acting performances were a bit different. So how did you find ways to also add your perspective on the film and your style?
Well, I think it was actually because the actors didn't, actually conform to like whatever was happening. That's where I felt like, okay, I'm going to choose the best performance I can. And this is where we're going to like make sure that the thing that Gus wants to do is it's going to hew closely, but it's like, this is my perspective. And when we got to the shower scene, it played so bizarrely slow. And maybe it was because he shot it in color. Maybe we could not figure out why it had less of an impact as the black and white one. We could not figure out why. and I was like, well, we should just do something to make it ours then, and make it jarring. And that was when he was like, they had made a teaser for the film already, the marketing department. And so he saw all these shots of like clouds, a cow, like what, like, so he's like, let's try some of those weird shots. And so we found like some stock footage, and we started cutting it in just to be kind of like her life passing before her eyes kind of thing. And that's what we ended up with. And it worked. It was bizarre, but it worked. And for us, it worked for us. I don't know about anybody else, but it worked for us. So, I mean, everybody has their opinion of that film. Like, why it should never have been made and whatever. And I'm like, look, it's conceptual art. I don't, it was a $20 million conceptual art piece that Gus Van Sant made. And I'm very proud to have worked on it. And we got away with murder. And I don't, it's fantastic.
Was it really surreal kind of cutting that shower scene because it's so famous?
It was bizarre. like putting it together, I'm like, this is the weirdest thing I have ever done. This is, and I was still a kid. I mean, I was like, it's like, I'm a kid. It was like I was in my early 30s, and I was like, this is great, but like truly the weirdest thing I'd done in my career at, even like working on my own Private Idaho. Like, we're doing something that is so bizarre, and I love that, and I will just never forget it. I love it.
And what you said before about how the acting was able to help you change the film, and I was wondering as an editor, because really you're the one to shape the acting performance.
Yes.
And so how do you come to those decisions to choose the scenes you're going to go with and shape the character of the film or the show? And do you worry about staying, I don't know, like faithful to the actor in a way of like making them look the best that they can be? And so how do you go about that?
I worry about it a lot. It is one thing, like consistency, like what, Mayor of Easttown, which was like the last thing I worked on. Kate Winslet's performance is incredibly powerful and riveting. But, there were times where she would do something different and you would be kind of like, that's so interesting. But should I use that? Because it's like, is she staying true to her character? Am I getting away from her character? And so then it's something I think about all the time. Would this character be doing this? Would this, I ask the questions all the time.
At times like that, do you refer back to the director and maybe just say, look, what do you want the character to look like? Sometimes
I do, because it's like, it's choices, and making those choices, sometimes it's just very hard. And like with a performer like Kate Winslet, it's like an embarrassment of riches. So it's like, even if that thing didn't work, it's like you have like 5 other things to use. There are many times in other things where you do not have an embarrassment of riches, and you're like truly sculpting the actor's performance from like tiny pieces. And I won't say, who that is, because it's like, it's just something you do in like every single show, where it's just like, I got to use this. I've got to use this. Maybe I can steal a piece of his voice and stick it in for this.
Right.
We're just constantly doing things like that. And that's where it does get tricky. And you are trying to maintain something that you can believe in.
And you just mentioned